I, 33 female, feel like my fiance, 35 male, is more interested than my assets than me. Should I refuse to give in on my prenup conditions? I, 33 female, am getting married in 6 weeks, and after some back and forth discussion, asked my fiance, 35 male, to modify our prenup, original covered only pensions, to also exclude my family's hobby farm from our future marital assets. I have extremely high stress job and work upwards of 100 HRS/week some weeks, and I presently earn 3.5x what he earns. The reason for doing this is because the farm is under my name. My parents can't afford the whole down payment and mortgage on it since they still have a mortgage their current home and didn't want this opportunity to slip by, so I helped them acquire it last year prior to my engagement. Obviously, I do not want to be forced to sell it from under them in the event of a separation in order to equalize assets. After I bought this up, my fiancé said he didn't trust me and alleged I was trying to hide money out of common assets, even though my parents had talked about this farm for years and are actively maintaining it heading into retirement. He requested for me to transfer the title entirely to my parents, which would trigger paying a lot of taxes for no reason since it's for my family. He also balked at the idea that I would continue to pay for their mortgage until they sold their current home, since my dad is near retirement and my mom was forced to retire early due to multiple health issues. They're probably going to need some extra time to figure things out. Paying for this mortgage is well within my financial ability, and I have done so without detriment since last year. I have still been able to save, pay my own mortgage, bills, buy his flights to come visit me as we are currently doing long distance, buying gifts, and paying for nice dinners and activities. I reassured him that continuing to pay for the mortgage would not affect our quality of life, but he still felt that it was taking away from our future common assets. I think it's hypocritical of him to scrutinize my helping out my parents, because after we get married and move in together to my place, he is going to allow his current roommate to stay in his 4-bedroom house by herself, because she is seeking a separation from her husband right now and has no place to stay, for a rate that is far below fair market value, even when factoring the occasional maintenance she will do on the place. Not to mention, she is also a smoker, and this may deter some other renters if he tried to find someone else to take his place to share the home after him moves out. There are also a couple of other borderline red flags surrounding this roommate relationship, and the boundaries seem a little weird for being friends or roommates, despite his reassurances. I was obviously disappointed and offended after all of this, and asked to separate all our premarital assets because he seems so fixated on my higher income. Despite offering to perpetually pay for more of our future common expenses, he still was fixated on how he was losing out because I earn more and will have more potential income to invest and put towards my premarital assets. They would eventually go towards our future children anyway. We aren't even married yet, and I get the sense that he already feels entitled to my hard-earned money, so I am planning on standing firm on this prenup. Top comment. +K+M. Ask yourself why you'd marry this guy. 6 weeks before the wedding you should deliriously happy with him and worried only about the caterer having enough food. But instead you're concerned that he's after your money and that he's potentially bumping around with his roommates. In the long run it might be easier to take a loss on the wedding deposits you likely won't get back than to have to give this guy half of everything in an eventual divorce. Forward KJ. He's clearly after your money. He's very concerned about being denied your assets if you two divorce. This is how I see it. He's marrying you with the intention of getting a divorce. He'll then take half your wealth and go back home to his roommate, who is obviously his girlfriend. Sugar Plum Bear. He is accusing you of taking away from your future mutual assets while suggesting the exact same thing by allowing his friend to live below market rate. Also, that is a super suspicious relationship he has with her. He is making demands that would hurt your family. He is defensive, unreasonable, and irrationally entitled to your current and future assets. I would absolutely demand the prenup, and the terms would be sparse. He should be marrying you for you and not your money, and that document will ensure his motive is pure. Jesse_Oliwa. Without knowledge of your previous relationship, And knowing that we are getting only one side of the story, I'm not going to question why you still want to marry him. I'm sure there are reasons. That said, I do find his statements very suspicious. It feels like he's already planning for the future divorce and wants to maximize his portion of the assets. I would rewrite the prenup to strongly protect all exiting assets. Anything you purchase together is common property, but everything you have now is clearly defined as yours and cannot be part of any settlement. If he really wants you, this might be offensive to him but won't stop him from moving forward with the wedding. If he basically calls it off, well, you have your answer. Intelligent price 39. Do not ignore the feeling of misgiving or lack of trust in your fiancé. Finances are why a lot of marriages break down, and he seems overly invested in your finances. Trying to tell you what to do sounds controlling. This will increase if you marry him. OK_imagination_1107. I beg you not to get married. Never mind the conditions of the prenup and his being out of order over these. You've just described a classical man who is after you for your money and property. The fact that he's going to keep a 4-bedroom flat to keep his female friend in is enough of a deal breaker for me. But then you add that onto the fact you've been paying for his flights and yet he wants you to do something to the detriment of your parents. Well, you have a huge number of red flags here, and I think you must know that. Do not get married. Sassy sassy. Holy hell, absolutely not. This guy is out of his mind. Don't marry him. Let him stay with his roommate because pretty sure that's his girlfriend. This guy is after your money. Ain't no way I'd marry him without a prenup stating all premarital assets stay with who brought them into the marriage. No alimony no matter what. Make it ironclad. No loopholes. No vague wording. Make sure there's no way he can get a penny from you. Also keep your finances separate if you do marry him. He will bleed you dry if you let him. Cassowary 32. Don't marry this guy. You don't even live in the same city yet. You have no idea how your day-to-day feels with him, and he's already trying to interfere with your relationship with your parents. You make 3.5x what he makes. Will he still have an income after he moves? What happens if he quits his job? Don't ignore the red flags. If he was trustworthy, protecting your parents' property would be a no-brainer. Nighttime wins 26. I am going to speak to you and tell you what I would tell a man in your situation. Your fiancé has more red flags than a fire station has red trucks. A roommate, living in his place, and you have doubts about their friendship? Yet if this were a dude, I'd be telling him to walk. Also, of course he's after your assets. Why else would he be fighting you? Stand extremely firm on your prenup. If he doesn't sign it the way you want to, leave. Just leave. He's actively telling you if your parents needed a place to stay, he'd fight you on that, but he can do whatever he wants. He's not a family person. He's a hypocrite leech who needs to stay the hell away from your money. You earned that money, you made the business work, he didn't. I'd leave if I were you. No sense in marrying such a careless, ungrateful, and obviously destructive fool. Reddit_mostly_sucks. Your rationale to not include the farm makes sense. It also makes sense to me that his reaction would be defensive, as it implies divorce is something to worry about, not something we want to hear. However, given your reasoning, it does make sense. And as adults, these things need to be sorted out. Unfortunately, he isn't seeing your side. He needs to understand the rationale and logic to a point he can't argue against it. The roommate situation on top certainly makes him all the more unreasonable for not seeing your side of things. At the same way, it could be his convoluted way of thinking that you aren't seeing things from his perspective, though I think you are right to be somewhat defensive about that particular situation with her, and he is wrong for not understanding the situation with your parents' farm. Besides this, is the relationship all good? Are you happy to spend the rest of your life with him? Red_bug91. It's not really a solution to the prenup issue right now. but could you put the farm into a trust to protect it from any potential divorce settlements or bankruptcy? We have that for my husband's business. He did it long before we got together. Initially, his sister was the beneficiary, temporary measure, but now our kids are. Essentially what it means is that if we were to divorce, or ever file bankruptcy, the business assets are not considered his, so are protected. Pretty much all of the surgeons I work with do the same. Most accountants should be able to manage the setup. His parents did the same with their farm. Husband and his sisters are the beneficiaries. I have no desire to take any of those assets, but because it was set up this way, I would have no grounds to take part of the farm if we divorced. The terms of the trust are set so it won't pay for some time, which is why I can't touch it. There are a million options for setting up trusts and corporations for investments. We have one set up for all our shares, that is run as a business so we don't have to pay as much tax on the profits. My in-laws set up a trust for my kids, and they are the beneficiaries, but I'm an executor because its purpose is to cover my kids' education and any emergency expenses like medical bills. You've got 6 weeks to either resolve this with your partner or call off the wedding. But either way, with your earning capacity and assets, I think it would be wise to meet with a financial planner and a lawyer to ensure that you are protected no matter what happens. Bria mia. Worst case scenario, you get married and stay married for 2 years, at which point he files for divorce, and guess what gets included in your assets? The hobby farm. This is why he doesn't want you to exclude it. If it's excluded, he wants you to put it in your parents' name so that you aren't paying on it, more of your assets for him. All in all, your fiancé is showing a shocking amount of entitlement to your assets and salary, to include telling you what you should and shouldn't be using your money for. Why is it any of his business that you are making your parents' retirement a little more comfortable for them? Particularly, when he is gifting a roommate a below-market rental. It would make me wonder what exactly is their relationship. He lives out of state apparently. Are you sure that they are not intimately involved? I might want a private investigator to snoop around and find out what this living arrangement really involves. You might try to see if the roommate has a Facebook page and what kind of postings she puts out. Dapper_highlighter 7. I'm not a person who has a particularly close relationship with my parents, but it sounds like you're doing what good parents can hope for from their grown children, which is to support them when they need it, especially transitioning into and through retirement. I assume this aligns with your family values, and even if he can explain the asset priorities, you should consider why he doesn't share your values towards caring for your family. You aren't asking him to contribute his own financial means towards it, you simply already have a viable situation. But instead of accepting it as is, he expects you to put undue pressure on your parents for what he perceives to be his own benefit. If you aren't comfortable with framing your concerns as financial, you should absolutely be considering the impact it has on your own personal and family values. Linux Brandon. If you don't trust each other to this extent already with finances, don't get married. That's all there is to it. If he's literally accusing you of hiding money and you're worried he likes your money more than you, there is zero reason for you to get married right now. Either go to counseling and learn to trust each other or call this sham off. But it isn't a loving union. Wolverine No 8799. Delay the marriage and live together for a year or so before marriage is back on the table. It is highly likely that he is sleeping with his damsel in distress roommate. He is charging her a tiny rent, and yet he demands that you stop paying the mortgage on your family's hobby farm. He also wants it as an asset to be split in the event of a divorce. There are too many red flags. As someone else suggested, hire a PI and get them to dog into your fiancé's background and love life. UKNZ007 Tubbs. So you already have a signed prenup? And you didn't think to exclude premarital assets from it? Either you and or your lawyer are imbeciles. As for excluding your family's hobby farm, while you currently have the financial ability to pay for everything you currently do, are you at any time in the future looking at having kids? Is your career safe, in both the stability/longevity and also physical/mental safety, if you exclude your family's hobby farm, and in the future end up not being able to afford to pay for everything you currently do? As soon as you use any of his income to pay for it, it becomes a marital asset, and your prenup becomes void in that sense. So transferring it to your parents is actually the best way forward.